Hello, good afternoon. I'm Ellen Sentier, and this is Celtic Noir story time. And today I'm going to be talking to you, I'm going to be reading to you from a novel that I love. And it's one of Ellis Peters' novels, Cadfael, and it's called The Holy Thief. And it's about a beautiful, wonderful young musician, a troubadour. Now, I've been in love with troubadour music ever since I first heard it as a child. And part of that hearing also got me deeply into the history of Eleanor of Aquitaine, who you may have heard of too. Eleanor of Aquitaine was a rebel, and in the 12th century in France, Europe as a general, women did not have an easy time. We were property. But Eleanor managed things amazingly. She was a real rebel. She lived to 80s, into her 80s, and she had, I think, about a dozen children, several men, and that was odd too. And normally in those days, if you made it past your second child without dying in childbed, it was quite something. So she was quite a lady. And the troubadours, whose music I said I love, the troubadours sang about the courts of love. And Eleanor is likely the person who began the courts of love, part of her rebellion. Because as I said, we were property. We were married off as part of a land deal, a money deal, a power deal. So whether or not we actually liked the person that we had to go to bed with was quite something else. Didn't matter at all. Very often we would miss out on love, miss out on having a really deep relationship, even friendship. So Eleanor developed the courts of love, which were ruled by women, where women decided who they would love and how and when, and the men came to them. Troubadours sang about this, and this young monk has learned troubadour songs. He's only, what, 18, 19, 20? And he's been around before he joined up with being a monk. He was a harpist to a lord, and he learned a lot of things, including troubadour songs. Now, troubadour songs would not be welcome in a monastery. They're love songs, actually quite sensual. And that was not good. But in this story, Cadfael takes him to meet this old woman. She's not old, but she's older, and she's on her deathbed, dying probably of something like cancer. And she loves music. So let me take you into the story now. Here we are in the bedroom with Cadfael and the young monk, Tullio. And she begins the conversation. My younger son, she said, meeting to Tullio's wide golden eyes with a thoughtful and appreciative smile, was never cut out to be a monk. So an emperor said, I believe, remarked Cadfael, recalling what Anselm said of St. Gall, about the first Tullio, after whom this young brother is named. For this brother Tullio, a novice at Ramsey, and close to the end of his novitiate, as I hear from his superior, if he takes after his namesake, he should be a painter, a carver, a singer, and a musician. Great pity, said King Charles, Charles the Fat, they called him, that ever such a genius should be made a monk. He called down a malediction on the man that did it, so Anselm tells me, at least. Some day, said Donato, looking at this very comely and graceful young man, looking him over from head to foot, and recording with a detached attention what she saw. Some king may say the same of this one, or some woman, of course. Are you such a paragon, Tutello? It's why they gave me the name, said the boy honestly, and a faint rosy blush surged up out of the coils of his cowl and climbed his sturdy throat into the suave cheeks, but apparently without causing him any discomfort. He did not lower his eyes, which dwelt with fascination upon her face. In its final tranquillity, something of its long-departed beauty had returned to render Donata even more formidable and admirable. "I have some skill," he said, in music. It was stated with a certainty of one capable of detached judgment, without either boasting or deprecating his powers. Small flames of interest kindled in Donata's hollow eyes. "Good. So you should lay claim to what you know you do well," she said approvingly. "Music has been my easiest way to sleep many a night. My consolation, too, when the devils were too active. Now they spend their time sleeping, and I lie awake." She moved a frail hand upon the coverlet, indicating a chest that sat in a remote corner of the room. "There's a psaltery in there, though it has not been touched for a long time, if you care to try it. No doubt it will be grateful to be given a voice again. There is a harp in the hall, but no one now to play it." Tutelo went readily to lift the heavy lid and peer down at the stored valuables within. He lifted out the instrument, not a large one, meant to be played on the knees and shaped like the broad snout of a pig. The manner in which he handled it was eloquent of interest and affection, and if he frowned, it was at the sight of a broken course among the strings. He peered deeper into the chest for the quills to play it, but found none, and frowned again. "Time was," said Donata, "when I cut new quills for it every week. I'm so sorry. We have neglected our duty." That brought her a brief, preoccupied smile, but his attention went straight back to the psaltery. "I can use my nails," he said, and brought the instrument with him to the bedside, and without ceremony or hesitation sat down on the edge of the bed, straightened the psaltery on his knees, and passed a stroking hand over the strings, raising a soft, quivering murmur. "Your nails are too short," said Donata. "You will flay your finger ends." Her voice could still evoke colours and tones that made the simplest utterance eloquent. What Cadfael heard was a mother, between indulgence and impatience, warning youth of venturing on an undertaking that would possibly be painful. No, perhaps not a mother, nor even an elder sister. Something more distant than a blood relative with rights, and yet closer. For those contacts, free of all duty and responsibility, are also free of all restraints, and may approach as rapidly and as close as they will. And she had very little time left to submit to limitations now. What the boy heard there was no knowing, but he flushed up at her a bright naked glance, not so much surprised as alerted, and his hands were abruptly still for an instant, and he smiled. "My finger ends are leather, see?" He spread his palms and flexed his long fingers. "I was harper to my father's lord at the manor at Burton for a year and more before I entered Ramsay. Hush now, let me try. But it lacks one course. You must hold me excused for the flaws." There was something of indulgence in his voice, too, a soft amusement, as if to a needlessly solicitous elder who must be reassured of his competence. He had found a tuning key lying in the chest with the instrument, and he began to test the gut strings and tighten busily at the pegs that anchored them. The singing murmur rose like a chorus of insects in a summer meadow, and Tutelo's tonsured head stooped over his work in total absorption, while Donata, from her pillows, watched him from under half-closed lids, the more intently because he was now paying no heed to her. Yet some intense intimacy bound them, for as he softened into a passionate, private smile over his work, so did she, over his concentration and pleasure. Wait, one of the strings in this broken course is long enough to serve. Better one than none, though you'll notice when the tone thins. His fingers, if toughened by the harp, were very nimble and neat as he attached the single string and tightened it gingerly. There, now. He passed a light hand over the strings and produced a shimmering rill of notes. Wire strings will be louder and brighter than gut, but this will do very well. He bent his head over the instrument and plunged like a hawk stooping and began to play, flexed fingers dancing. The old soundboard seemed to swell and throb with the tension of notes too full to find adequate release through the fretted rows at the centre. Cadfael withdrew his stool a little from the bedside, to have them both in plain view, for they made an interesting study. The boy was undoubtedly hugely gifted. There was something almost alarming in the passion of the assault. It was as if a bird had been muted for a long time and suddenly found his muffled throat regain its eloquence. In a little while, his first hunger was slaked, and he could soften into moderation and savour all the more gratefully the sweetness of this indulgence. The sparkling, whirling dance measure, light as thistledown for all its passion, eased into a gentle air, better adapted to an instrument so soft. Even a little melancholy, some kind of virelay, rhythmic, rueful. Where had he learned that? Certainly not at Ramsay. Cadfael doubted if it would be even welcome there. And Lady Donata, world-weary and closely acquainted with the ironies of life and death, lay still in her pillows, never taking her eyes from the boy who had forgotten her existence. She was not the audience to whom he played, but she was the profound intelligence that heard him. She drew him in with her great bruised eyes, and his music she drank. It was wine to her thirst. Crossing the half of Europe, overland, long ago, Cadfael had seen gentians in the grass of the mountain meadows, bluer than blue, of the same profound beyond blue of her eyes. The set of her lips, wryly smiling, told a slightly different story. Tutelo was already crystal to her. She knew more of him than he himself knew. The affectionate, sceptical twist of her mouth vanished when he began to sing. The tune was at once simple and subtle, playing with no more than half a dozen notes, and his voice pitched higher than in speech, and very soft and suave. Had had the same qualities, innocent as childhood, piercing as a wholly adult grief. And he was singing not in English, not even in Norman French as England knew it, but in the Languedoc. Cadfael remembered imperfectly from long ago. Where had this cloister novice heard the melodies of the Provençal troubadours and learned their songs? In the Lord's Hall, where he had been a harper? Donata knew no southern French. Cadfael had long forgotten it, but they knew a love song when they heard it. Rueful, unfulfilled, eternally hopeful, an amour de loin, never to come face to face. The cadence changed in an instant, and the secret words passed magically into Ave Mater Salvatoris, and they were back with the liturgy of Saint Maritel before they realized, as Tutelo had realized with the wild perceptions of a fox, that the door of the room had opened. He was taking no chances. The door had actually opened on the harmless person of Sulian Blunt, but Subprior Herluin was there, at his shoulder, looming like a cloud. And I'm going to stop there. That says so much to me, and it says so much to me of the courts of love itself, of love as we know it now, even, and of this delicacy, this intimacy between two people, as there is between Tutelo and Donata, and between Cadpal too, because he's watching and he understands. He's been there too. All of that is so much magic and so much love. And love and magic are so together. And a little thing extra too. The Troubadours and the people then, and quite possibly Eleanor, were often alchemists. And we're going to talk more about that on the Thursday posts as well. For love is alchemy, music is alchemy, and alchemy is itself. And it's so bound up in all of that and a part of magic. So I'm going to leave you there for the moment, and I'm starting my set of posts. God knows how long they're going to be on. Tomorrow, you'll see them tomorrow. Letters from Ellen's Country. And they'll be here on Substack. So speak to you then. But for now, see you on the other side.